today you guys have had a chance to sit down, hopefully you guys have done it, to sit down and to go through your September or October bank statement and to put everything into 3 categories. So category A was all the things that you were eating and drinking that you didn't prepare at home. Category B was everything else that you were outside buying, like activities that you were doing with your family, just things that you were buying. You know, like I mentioned, yoga pants or cleats for your child's football, things like that you just had to buy. You just went out and bought them, or things that you didn't really have to buy, but you still did it anyway. And category C was all of your debt payments. So all the things that you had to pay with your paycheck that if you didn't pay, you were going to get in trouble for, have late fees, things like that. So now that you've had that, we're going to talk about budgeting. Yay, budgeting, everybody's favorite topic. So budgeting was really hard for me for a really long time. It still is a little bit hard for me, but guys, the whole point of budgeting is you want your money to work for you. You want all of the money that you work so hard for to have a purpose and a place. You want it to work for you. So what does that mean? So basically, you have a net and a gross income. So your gross income is all the money that you make before taxes, insurance, retirement if you're doing that right now, all of those things. And then your net is what you take home. So if you're like me, you're a one-income family. I used to work, but now I'm staying home with my 3 kids. And so all of that money my husband makes. So basically, we need to figure out how to make our money work for us. And what we're going to do is we're going to write down a budget. And you can do this. There are lots of free services out there that you can use for budgeting. But I think as a starter, it's really good just to write it down on paper. And then you can get more fancy, down the road. So we're going to have a bunch of budget categories. It's a little overwhelming. It's a daunting task. You think about all the things that you spend money on every single month. How do I put that all into categories? Well, we're going to do broad categories, and then we're going to break it down into smaller categories. And then in the next video that I do, we're going to really start to figure out what is really needed. Because some of you might have added up A, B, and C, and you may have found that you are spending more than you're bringing in. And while a lot of people get really good at trying to manipulate their paychecks, and a couple times a year, if you notice, a few times a year, there'll be like an extra paycheck one month and people kind of get caught up. And then a lot of people get tax returns and they get caught up again, but it's still a constant state of stress. I mean, nobody wants to be playing this game of cat and mouse with their budget, with their income, So what we're going to do is we're going to break our budget down into categories. So we have the grand total, okay? We have the grand total of your net income, not your gross. We're going to just work with your net income because the net income is what you have to work with. Gross is lovely and it's always a bigger number, but that unfortunately is not what goes home with us. So for the budget categories, the first thing you want to do is your 4 walls. The things that you need to have a roof over your head. So your rent or your mortgage. And along with your rent and your mortgage you're either going to pay, insurance on your house, or you're going to have renter's insurance. And I'm going to stop the video right here. I'm not soliciting, but if you don't have renter's insurance, you need to get it. It is a necessity. It is extremely cheap. I mean, it is so cheap. I think it's like $13 a month. I mean, that's what it was a few years ago. If you can pay for Netflix, you can pay for renter's insurance to protect all the things that you have in your house. Because guess what, guys? If you're renting and your house burns down, nothing is covered. The homeowner does not have to replace all your belongings. So if you are a renter, which I was for a lot of years, you really need to have renter's insurance. And you need to actually know what your renter's insurance covers, okay? So that's just, I had to stop because I think a lot of people just don't know. I remember I was living in my first apartment at 18. I think I was in my first apartment at 18, and I had no clue what renter's insurance was. And then I ended up hearing about it and I was like, oh, and then I ended up getting it. I think it was like $120 a year at that point. And that was, I'm 36, so it was a while ago. 18 was a while ago. But yeah, so you want to have your 4 walls covered. So your mortgage, your rent, your insurances, okay, your electric, your water, your sewer, your trash, your heat. If you have oil heat or if you have propane, you need to account for these things. Right now, the price of oil is through the roof. So if you are one of many Americans that have an oil tank that needs to get filled throughout the winter to keep you warm, you need to budget that. Especially because I think my friend recently just said that she got a quote for oil and it was like $6.98 a gallon. $6.98 per gallon. I mean, that is unreasonable. It is absurd, but these are the times that we're living in, guys, and you cannot be cold. So I'm going to actually real quick take a little segue into another direction, and I will come right back. But you also might want to start thinking about alternative ways to heat your house. But you need to be careful because you can't just get a propane like a propane gas powered heater and like suffocate yourselves because it is releasing chemicals into the air. So you need to be really careful what you're using to heat your house. But it might be wise to consider, like, do you live near lots of woods? Can you get wood? Is getting a cord of wood that you actually have to pay for, like already split and everything, delivered to your house, is that cheaper a few times a year than filling your oil tank? Would a wood stove be a good investment? Would a pellet stove be a good investment? We have a wood stove. I'm not sure if you can actually hear the fan on the wood stove. I'll do a tour later, but in one of my other videos of my house, because that's part of like who I am. I want to show you guys my homesteading and all that stuff. But we moved into this house 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, this house, we have a 500-gallon propane tank underground that was the primary source of heat for our house in the winter. It's like it was like ended up being like I think like $5,000 for the cold season to keep this house at like a reasonable temperature, like probably like 67. That's unaffordable. We could not. That was just not something that we could sustain. So one of the first things we did was put in a wood stove, and we budgeted it out, and we put a wood stove in for, I think, the wood stove and the installation. Thankfully, my dad helped my husband install it. Installation can be tricky and it can be expensive, so I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. But if you are a part of a church community and there are people that you know that are contractors that have experience with that, this is a time when it behooves you to search out the community members in your church or in your community that can help you. Okay, as long as if they're a licensed contractor, they can do these things. So look into alternative methods of heating. So I'm coming back now. I just want you guys to start opening your mind and to start thinking like a frugal person. And for me, if I had an oil tank right now in 2022, we are in October, and the last day of October of 2022, I would be very, very concerned about financially affording to keep my family warm for the winter. And I would be looking immediately at alternative methods. And I know it takes capital. Some people don't just have $2,000 laying around to just find a used wood stove on the marketplace and plop it in their house. I understand that. But there are space heaters. There are lots of ways that you can supplement and maybe run your oil heat just for a few hours here and there and supplement, like close your rooms and have like space heaters because electric may be cheaper. Just something to think about. It does behoove you to start thinking about these things. So the next thing is we got the 4 walls covered. That's going to be your first budget category, your 4 walls. All the things that are required to run your house, to keep your house kind of like doing its thing. The next thing is going to be non-necessities. And I say non-necessities because, guys, you don't need any of these things to survive. And this is going to be one of those things where I have a reality check talk in the next video, because we're really going to start cutting these things out. Because what's more important, $6.98 for a gallon of oil to heat your house, or Netflix? what's more important? $5 a gallon for propane to heat your house or Disney Plus? It's really, it's hard, but there's a difference between needs and wants, okay? And these are non-necessities. These are non-essentials. And so what are non-essentials? And now there's always going to be someone that is like an outlier in this discussion, okay? So I'm going to preface this now. I know that not every situation applies to you, but let's open our minds and kind of soak it in and be like, okay, does it really not apply to me, or am I just kind of being a little bit selfish? Just a thought, okay? I understand that if you work at home, you need internet, or your family's not going to eat, because if there's no internet, then you're not going to get a paycheck because you literally need that. But are there ways to get a stipend for your internet? You know what I mean? Like, can you get, like, can your company pay for your internet if you're working from home? Can you do that? So that's just a thought. And I mean, like, you can't work from a library, like, you need quiet. So I understand that this is not a one size fits all, and I'm acknowledging that now. So don't come at me in the comments. Okay? All right, here we go. So non-necessities: TV, internet, if you don't own a business and you're not working from home. Okay. Streaming services. I understand that cable is a joke, and it's 2022, it's almost 2023, and like, I don't know who has cable still. I mean, my parents, they have cable, and they're like in their 70s. So, I mean, people that watch, I mean, my husband is a sports fan, and he watches every we're in Philadelphia area, so he watches every sports game, but guess what? He streams it from his phone. He leeches off of someone else's, passwords to watch a game here and there. Because we don't have cable. So, how many streaming services do you have? Oh wait, I'm gonna count them. 5, 7, 10. Is it adding up to like over $150 a month? Was cutting cable really cost effective for you guys? So these are things to think about. Obviously, if you have children, it's very hard to be a mother and to never have a 5-minute break. So I understand that you would like to have your children sit down and watch a movie here and there, and I understand that. I don't get to watch much TV, but if I do, I would like to be able to just turn the TV on and be able to like mindlessly watch something for an hour. So I totally understand that, but do we need 12 streaming services? These are things that we all need to think about. But right now, just add them all up. Okay, these are non-necessities, but put them in the non-necessity budget list, and we'll see. Maybe if you have the money to pay for them, then by all means. But it is a little bit smart to think about the way of the world right now and where we're going. So other categories: cell phones, entertainment, car payments, insurance, fuel. So that keeps going up, and then it comes down a little bit, and then it goes back up again. So fuel, you need to budget your fuel over what you think your budget for fuel is, because it is changing by the day. Let's say that you drive to work every day and you're budgeting. I don't know like what it costs to drive, because I'm home, but if let's say it's $250 a month, I would budget for like $300 or $350 in gas. Just a thought process. It's all going to depend on how far you drive, and if you are able to, get a gas card, or if you drive around for work, like maybe that's different for you. So all that can be, talked about and discussed with you and your spouse. So the last category, but for a lot of you, this is going to be like the most challenging category. It was for me and my husband for a lot of years. My husband and I have been working for over a decade to get out of debt. I turned 18 a long time ago, and I got lots of, I swear it was like, happy birthday, here is 1 million credit card offers in the mail. And I was like, I came from a very low income situation. So I was like, oh my goodness, look at all these credit cards, all these stores at the mall that I have never been able to shop at. Yeah. So I opened so many credit cards when I was 18. It was actually like really predatory looking back at it. I honestly, It's crazy, but I was an adult and I made the decision to open countless credit cards. And I'm talking like I was only 18. So, I mean, one card had $200 balance. One card had a $500 balance. I remember having one card that had a $2,500 balance. And I was like, I am so cool right now. I just am so cool right now. I remember getting a Sunoco card in the mail. And that was the beginning of a lot of hardship. But you know what? All of that has led me to this day when I can look in this camera and say that my husband and I are 100% out of credit card debt. And it took a very long time. My husband did some of the same things with credit cards when he turned 18, got some credit cards. A lot of his debt was car debt and stuff like that. Just crazy things, right? And I'm sure that you have a relatable story or a story of just survival. I mean, another situation is my husband went away to school in Chicago for 6 months, and I was in nursing school, and we had no money, and he took out a ton of loans so we could survive. So we were taking out loans so he could go to school, so he could rent a tiny like square box high rise like room for rent, and for us to be able to pay rent where we were living. And so we went into debt over that too. We're still crawling out of our student loan debt, but it is so amazing to say today that we have no like credit card debt at all, no medical debt, nothing like that. It took us a very long time to get out of. So I know what it's like. I have experience with it, and if you need help with that, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will help you as much as I can. So types of debt. So so types of debt: personal loans, car loans, student loans, all of the fantastic loans that you have that are horrible and they haunt you every day. Those need to get listed, okay? Next thing, credit cards. All your credit cards, all of your credit cards have to get listed, okay? The next thing is anything else that you owe money on. If you owe any money to any person, that needs to get listed as debt. So child support, alimony, just basically if you owe money to anybody, it needs to go in this debt category, okay? Medical debt, all those things. That's a really tough category because it especially if you have student loans and medical debt, you could look at that and be like, I am never going to get out of that. But you're going to, because I have been climbing out of it. And yeah, it's not an overnight thing, guys. Nothing in life that is worth having is easy, but being out of debt and being debt free is the moment that you experience even just partial debt freedom. Okay, so because I'm not 100% debt free. We're partially debt free. The feeling to not have to log on to my computer every 2 weeks or once a month and send out hundreds of dollars to debt collectors it changes who you are. It changes you. So one person that I do follow is Dave Ramsey on the way that he talks about paying off debt. He says that regardless of interest rate, you should list all of your debts from smallest to largest and pay them off that way. By doing it this way, if you have a medical bill for $200 and then you have a credit card for $1,000 and then they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, by paying off the little ones first, you start to gain traction and momentum. You start to feel really good that you're making a difference. And I really do agree with his viewpoint on this. A lot of people will argue that you should always pay off cards that have the highest interest rate first. But I disagree, especially with people who are tackling debt for the first time, because by choosing to pay a credit card with a 30% interest rate versus paying a $500 medical bill, it is going to take so long for you to pay off that high interest credit card that you're going to give up. Or you're just going to get so frustrated and just feel that like this is the most mundane, hard, and challenging thing that you've ever done, and it's going to make you lose traction. So list all of your debts from smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate, and pay them off that way. guys, I really hope that this helped, and we're going to come back. I'm going to give you a couple days to do this. We're going to come back in about 3 days, and we're going to start tackling, trying to trim the fat here, because there are going to be many of you who are in a situation where you feel that you have more going out than you have coming in, and it's a problem. And although you've been really hustling and you've been making it work this long, but it's exhausting. You're exhausted. I was exhausted. I was doing it too. So let's get the budget down, and we'll come back and talk about it in a few days. Guys, as always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come onto my channel. I know I'm a new YouTube channel, and I just really appreciate it. Be blessed.